I'm Mark. He's Ian. Wisdom and Knowledge 5 is our podcast, and we are just proud to have on Levana Lomma of For Our Rights in Hawaii. Welcome to the podcast, Levana.
Hey guys, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Sure. Ian, get this podcast started.
Sure. Well, when we're looking from the outside, we see some very shocking, images and news when it first happened, and right away, something was very much off. Now we had wildfires up here in Quebec in the spring, which was very unnatural, because first of all, it's very wet. There's still snow, and then people don't go camping. So how did these fires start? So when we're seeing all these fires starting in all these different places, there seems to be a pattern. But particularly shocking is to see what happened in Maui and Lahaina. It's like another level of shocking to see how, like, there's, they say grass fires, and you can expound upon that, but and also they were trying to say that the electric poles, they fell and they were still energized, and but there was cars that showed molten aluminum trickling down from the car. A lot of shocking things, and just a line, like, how did it just create such a clear line where the fire didn't go cross over into a particular area? So maybe with that, I'll let you just kick it off and give us some insight, since you're right there on the front lines.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, before we got started, we were just talking a little bit about 9/11, and I just want to mention that I really feel like this whole thing that's happened on Maui really is another 9/11. And so for those who maybe don't know, that was another orchestrated terror event, that was inflicted upon the people, the unsuspecting public, with an agenda behind it. So, and the reason I also bring that up is because there's a lot of unanswered questions still about 9/11 and how these towers could be completely just turned to dust. And, that we're supposed to believe it was some kind of structure fire that actually brought them down. And it's a very similar kind of situation with Maui, where, like you said, we're seeing some of the strongest evidence that really makes you question just exactly how this all could have happened would be these cars. There's a gentleman on Maui who has been really on the forefront. His name is Eric West, and he's coming under big fire. He lost his job because he was out there doing independent journalism and exposing some of this stuff. And he did point out he came across two vehicles that were in a wide open field, completely burned to a crisp, to the point where the aluminum is melted to the ground, running off down the hill. And for there to be this intensity of heat to cause metal to melt, yet everything around that area, all these homes completely untouched, when we're supposed to believe the fire spread because of high winds, it just makes absolutely no sense. Logically, like physically, it's something that is really going to be hard for any expert to answer. And so there's the main thing about all of this is that there's so many unanswered questions, and there's so much reason to believe, that there is an agenda behind it, that it was intentional. At the very least, there was gross misconduct or negligence on the part of our government, and that to prevent this from happening. But there's also reason to believe, that this was intentional, that it was an intentional, act designed to move the agenda forward. Right now, we know that our governments around the world, they're looking for more centralized control. They're looking to build back better just everywhere that they possibly can. So in order to do so, they've got to destroy everything, right? And the idea, of course, is to put people into highly surveilled smart cities that are completely controlled through the Internet of Things, and allow for total control of everything the population does, no private property, control of all resources. And, so this falls right in line with that, that there would be this plan to destroy so that they can build back the way they want to. And that's really no secret. We see that, Maui was already like the poster child for the smart cities. They had plans in place since 2016 with this Maui Jump Smart program that was designed to to show, you know, what it would be like to create this sort of, smart city plan for Maui. Yeah. So, you know, and the governor of Hawaii, you know, right there front and center with the United Nations on the Agenda 2030 plans, and, you know, boasting that Hawaii's leading the way, and we're going to be the first state to, you know, mandate 100% renewable energy. So, you know, his connections to Agenda 2030, and then some of the things he's said, being a keynote speaker at their recent, you know, convention where they were talking about all this stuff right before this happened. I mean, major red flags. So a lot of questions, not enough answers, and definitely reason to, you know, to really, you know, try to figure out what exactly did happen. Why did this happen? Why were these fires so intense? How did, you know, steel get melted yet leave, you know, plastic in the near vicinity untouched as well? And, you know, if you look into it, one of the few things that is capable of doing that is microwave energy. And so there is reason to, you know, to still question whether or not this could have been caused by directed energy weapons, which is a real thing that our military has been working on for a long time. So definitely a lot of stuff going on here, and people need to be paying attention, because, you know, if they're getting away with this here, I mean, they've done it in California, you know, 2018, we saw the same sort of thing in Paradise.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and other places, and, you know, it's going to continue, and they're going to blame it on climate change, because that's the perfect cover for, you know, the global solution. You know, they need a global problem, right? Climate change. And so that's why, yeah, exactly. So we definitely need to keep talking about Maui and really exposing this, and, you know, demanding answers from our government, and, you know, getting people on board to stand up against this for sure.
Yeah. So on that note, so how is the mood and the awareness right there in the front line? How, like, I mean, how many people that were affected by this are starting to see that this is something quite different from what is being reported on the MSM? Is there a critical threshold of people, plus, like, in independent investigators that are actually have some credibility, that are going and looking into this?
Yeah, there is, unfortunately, I really feel like there should be a lot more people that are being vocal and standing up and getting out there, but we definitely have, you know, a solid circle of activists, like, within, you know, the state, that are speaking out, you know, interviewing people, you know, fire captains and arborists, and people that, you know, can vouch that this is all not natural. And trying to get that information out. I know there's a group of people both on Oahu and on Maui that are actually at the state buildings right now, holding signs and protests saying, hey, we want answers. Where are the children? How come you're not telling us the whole story? You know, how come we can't get, you know, any straight answer from our government about, you know, where these displaced children could be? So there are, you know, independent journalists, people that are standing up, and definitely it's going to be a very different story than what you're hearing on the mainstream media. I mean, so far, all we've gotten is, you know, handpicked people to you know, to kind of go along with the official narrative. And there's really, you know, no real reporting going on of what's going on. There's still so much suffering. There's still so much people that are in need. You know, the people that own property there are still being denied the right to go back and sift through the you know, the remains of their homes and find possibly, you know, items that may have survived. One of the things that's really sketchy too is that there's actually there was video that was actually scrubbed from the internet. There was a news report of the EPA coming in and taking the topsoil, and they're talking about how they're going to ship it to the mainland, which does not make any sense in an investigation. You know, why they would take the soil and then take it away and send it off. But
just like the steel structures in 9/11 that shipped off to China, away, like, basically, like, take away all the evidence as much as possible.
Yep. That's the way I see it too. That's the first thing I thought of too. It's just like 9/11. So between that, and then, you know, the I don't know if you guys know, but they've got a black sheath fence that they put up for miles and miles.
Oh yeah, I did see that. Yeah,
all the way around Lahaina, and people are actually getting arrested for even trying to get close, or they're not allowed to take any video. or even pull off the side of the road and stop their vehicle. They'll get in trouble. There's military posted up to keep people out. I mean, the military presence alone, like that's just very, questionable as well. Like, why so much secrecy? Why are they trying to keep the people out? And of course they're going to say, well, it's, for their safety, because there's toxic, substances in the area. And so, but, at the same time, it's a perfect cover for trying to, suppress or keep people from really finding out what's going on there and seeing or doing their own investigation, maybe their own soil samples, right? So,
yes.
Yeah.
Is anybody trying to actually get in there to get samples, to get evidence? I mean, we saw those independent journalists with the cars. Was that in that restricted zone that they went?
Yes, that was. I think it was, again, that guy Eric West that wound up getting he wound up getting ticketed. He had stopped, and I think his intention was simply to talk to the police officer to ask why they're trying to, what authority they have, under what law, are they allowed to actually prevent people or stop people from pulling over or looking or taking any, video or pictures. And he wound up, getting cited for that, and has to go to court and everything. And they're, of course, claiming, well, it's the governor's emergency proclamation that, gives them that authority. However, I've actually read that proclamation myself, and nowhere in there does it say anything of that nature, that's not specifically some sort of rule that was put into the proclamation. And on that too, I will mention also that, that is another very questionable thing, that this proclamation was put in place weeks before this event happened.
Oh.
And I don't know if most people realize that, but yeah. So, so basically what it is, though, is that this emergency proclamation that I'm referring to, that was put into place weeks prior, was supposed to be in order to address the housing crisis in Hawaii, that there's not enough housing for the people. But, it's very questionable as to whether or not you could actually declare that sort of thing is actually a so-called emergency, because then it gives the governor the authority to suspend laws. And what they did was they suspended laws that, protect people's rights when it comes to zoning and, just all of these. They can come in and condemn,
just
and,
mobility and so forth, mobility rights, freedom of press and so forth in that particular area, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. So it's really amazing when you look at it like that. Like, wow, this proclamation was put in place before anything even occurred. Now, how convenient that it's in place so they can have these laws suspended, so that they can have the ability to come in and basically take over this land and do what they see fit. And and there has been talk already, the governor, straight from his mouth, saying that they're looking at ways for the state to acquire that land. Of course, he's trying to say they want to be able to preserve it or protect it by turning it into some sort of memorial or something of that nature. But, again, it's all just, sugar-coated talk for the, that's not in reality, though you can tell that the wheels are turning. They're in the process. They've been, wanting to acquire that land for some time. And, the Hawaiians there have been fighting for generations to keep that land out of the hands of big government and big business. And it's a terrible situation to be in, for those folks that are, the indigenous, the Native Hawaiians.
Let's talk about that for a second, like the humanitarian side of this. Like, so the number of families and houses, do we have like some numbers, first of all, just in terms of in that concentrated area where they just like zapped it, let's say, how many families, how many households were impacted?
Definitely. I don't know the exact number, but I do know that Lahaina is the population is about 12,000. I know that it was quoted that the damage, to be able to rebuild all the homes that were lost would be about $5 billion. And so, it's hard to say exactly how many homes, but
okay.
Yeah.
Well, and so the question is like, what are like the survivors, what are they doing right now? Like they were given this insulting, offensive, like $700 What
Yeah.
I mean, this is, and of course, all the money going to the Ukraine. So what are they doing? What are the people doing to survive right now? Where are they
It's
staying?
It's the community stepping up for the community. I mean, there's really been very minimal, if any, help at all from the government, from the federal government, from the local government. They pretty much did not show their face at all. There was no statements from the mayor or anyone for like the first week and a half at least. And, the people just had to come together to help each other. And in all of that too, they had to find alternative routes to get to people because they were actually being blocked by FEMA. FEMA, once they did come in, trying to regulate where supplies were going or how much or what was being, brought in. And so the people really, that's the beautiful thing about this, though, is, in Hawaii, the spirit of aloha is definitely alive and well. And that's what we do when there's tragedy. We come together as a community to help each other. And really, that's the best, the best way for it to be, honestly. And thank God for that, because although there's still definitely a lot of need, a lot of people still, trying to find, shelter or food and basic necessities. But for the most part, there's a lot of small organizations, churches and whatnot, just regular citizens too, that have boats, jet skis, things like that, that have come, been able to gather supplies and get it to people. So we, as an organization too, we're a nonprofit, for our rights, .org, and we have a Maui Relief Fund, and we've been collecting money that we're distributing to different groups like that, such as Aloha International Ministries, which is like a church ministry, and Hungry Heroes Hawaii. They are out there on the ground, boots on the ground, feeding people. So fortunately, there's been quite a bit of, different organizations really coming together. But yeah, you've got Biden offering, $700, which isn't even like a week's worth of rent in Maui. And meanwhile, sending billions of dollars to Ukraine, and accidentally sending money. I don't know if you heard that one.
Yeah,
but
the extra, they made it was what, extra 4 billion or something. I don't know, something
like that.
Astronomical number that, we sent a bit too much money.
Yeah. Meanwhile, that's like the exact amount of money that could go to fixing, to rebuilding the homes that were lost, on Maui. It's really, it's amazing.
What about the rich too? Because the richest houses were not touched, right? And then The Rock and Oprah was asking for money, which was disgraceful. I mean, they're disgraceful people to begin with. But and the other thing too, the blue houses, is there any truth to that? The houses with blue roofs did not get touched?
So I personally did not look into that too much, but I heard a little bit about that, and I have seen some different videos and pictures. And it actually does seem to be true, which is very bizarre. Not sure what to make of that, how to interpret that, but definitely going back to Oprah and these rich people's homes, that is very questionable, of course, as well, that their homes didn't sit too far from this area, and yet it's, completely untouched. And then, we have to maybe touch on the fact too, that there's this question about, where these children went. And, I'm not saying, but maybe I am saying, with Oprah and these people that, we know that. Yeah, exactly. And so basically what it is that there's 2,000 children that had been previously enrolled in schools on Maui that, after the fire, they have not, been re-enrolled elsewhere. And so there's still like 2,000 children that are essentially unaccounted for. So that doesn't mean, that they are absolutely for sure missing, but still we have no record of like where they are now. Maybe their parents aren't, ready to put them back in school at all. That's a possibility, but there's still, that's a lot of children. That's a lot of numbers. And it's still, something that's very disturbing. People want to know, and of course we can't get any answers from the government. They refuse to, even with what they're giving us as far as how many people have died, how many people are still missing, they're refusing to give us any kind of even roundabout number as to how many of them are children. And I think at this point, that's the biggest issue, is that we just want transparency from the government, and we want them to give us some kind of reassurance that they that they are, you know, looking into this, that they actually care, that they want to tell us the truth. But so far, all it seems is, you know, lie after lie or cover up, or, you know, they're just trying to tell us what they want us to hear rather than what we're asking about. So
yeah. And
yeah, it's
is there any veracity to the to this idea that there's underground tunnels and that are conveniently located in some of those areas where, you know, possibly.
yeah. So I do believe so. I mean, to be honest with you, I can't say with 100% certainty that that is 100% correct and true. I have seen some video that surfaced about underground tunnels on Maui. I'm still trying to work on verifying if that is for sure Maui, but I've also heard from people who have worked in, on, or around Mark Zuckerberg's property over here on Kauai, where I live. And I am pretty convinced that there's definitely, he's got some underground tunnel kind of action going on in that area as well. And of course, we know too, you know, that this is not just conspiracy theory, you know, that military, underground military, you know, deep
Dumps.
Underground military, yes, dumps,
Bases.
that's what you call
exactly.
bases, are definitely out there, and could be potentially used to, you know, to move people or whatever under the cover, you know. So
just a little sidebar in terms of my understanding of the blue roofs is it has to do with the lasers have a certain frequency where they do not actually have an impact, like it doesn't affect. So the color blue apparently, and they've shown tests where they have a laser that hits like different colors, and when it hits blue it doesn't burn. So it's the frequency. So it's very much frequency dependent on the light spectrum, and that's kind of a little bit of a overview of the science behind that. But in any case, that's, like I said, a side topic. More importantly, these missing children. And so the parents have their, like, in terms of the number of parents, the number of kids that are missing, 2,000. What about the families that are claiming missing children? Like, what's the balance between those two numbers? Like,
yeah, well, see, that's the thing that's very bizarre in all of this, that I have to admit. And I will note too that I think that the 2,000 number might be actually confirmed to be less than that at this point. I think it was I just wanted to throw that out there. I just realized, I just remembered that. But the strangest thing about it is that we aren't seeing any kind of uproar from the parents. And some people might, you know, but the thing is that, well, there's a very good chance that maybe the parents are dead too. And that's the thing too. So, and that's why, you know, the official number of how many people are confirmed dead is, in my opinion, I feel probably a lot smaller than the truth. I think that they're, in the very end, and the truth of it is that probably thousands of people lost their lives, but they don't want the public to know that. And of course, that's just speculation on my part, because I don't have any, you know, way to confirm that. But that's what it's looking like. You know, the only reason why there would be no outraged parents that are demanding, you know, where's my child, or, you know, answers to because they were also burned, I guess, you know, or drowned. A lot of people probably drowned because they were jumped into the ocean to escape the fire. Yeah, there was like 170 something bodies that had washed up on a neighbor island. And it's just horrifying, the whole thing, you know, to think. But
I was gonna say, so are there anybody at a, like, politicians, local people that have influence that are weighing in on this, that are helping to move the investigation in a more transparent way? Is there anyone locally that is helping in that way?
So, you know, I wish I could say that there was more politicians that were speaking out. You know, Tulsi Gabbard actually is one who has said quite a bit and been vocal about it. And, you know, that there's definitely incompetence going on here and something questionable, and that, you know, that we need, we need better leadership. But there's probably a handful of other local politicians that have spoken out a little bit, but I think, fortunately, we do have an attorney, Yoder. I think it's Chris Yoder, I believe is his first name, that he's created sort of an organization, Hawaii Preservation Fund.org, I believe, and raising money to bring legal action to help protect the people's property rights. And so we do have some good attorneys that are trying to help the people. And I know that there is a lawsuit already filed. I can't remember who brought this lawsuit, but it's basically asking for a writ of mandamus to have the government try to prove that they actually have this authority to have initiated an emergency proclamation to begin with. Again, it's bringing into question, was there truly an emergency? Of course, at the time this proclamation was issued, and
Right.
To question whether they should have the authority, to come in and be able to suspend these laws. So that's a really good, news that we've gotten recently, that there is a lawsuit already challenging the emergency proclamation.
That's good. And what about home and house insurance and so forth? How does that work are they going to be able to make claims under this type of situation?
I believe so. Yeah, I do think that people will be able to make claims with their insurance. Of course, I think that people are, if I remember correctly, what I've learned is that they can get a certain amount of money directly from their insurance company without actually having to sign any contracts or agreements, like, to sell off their land or anything like that. And so, to be able, to be wary about signing anything at this point. And of course, especially if people are taking help from FEMA, to be very wary about signing, any agreements, because they can, use that as a way to turn around and take their land. So,
right.
But in that regard, though, I do think, people should just definitely be a little bit wary about who they're talking to, watching out for real estate agencies that are trying to come in and ask them to sell their property and that
right.
sort of thing.
Yeah, they're going to take advantage of their vulnerable situation, I'm sure. And, a certain amount of money that they could be much less than what they would normally get, but they're desperate, right?
For sure.
What about the one I wanted to ask you? What about that one that keeps on speaking out? There's only one person speaking out that I see, and she was on MSNBC. Do you think she's legit, or do you think she is? If you know who I'm talking about.
I can't say I know who you're talking about unless.
Okay, she was one that first came out, and she goes, "They are not going to take our land." And it just seemed, I just kept on seeing her like MSNBC, and I'm like, why is only one person speaking out?
That's interesting.
It just seemed like a red flag. But the other thing too that I wanted you to touch upon, didn't they shut off the water?
I know, yeah. So they did. It's very, very interesting. And of course, again, it's kind of all goes back to the whole climate change thing, where, the reasoning behind that was, something about equity rights, so we can't just so basically, that whole thing is still questionable. But firefighters were on the scene ready to fight the fire, and there's no water coming through these hydrants because it had been shut off. And no good explanation really for that, of course. And then again, the police actually barricading and blocking people from leaving Lahaina and leaving that area, that is 100% confirmed. The mainstream media is not even trying to deny that, but yet there's no logical explanation or reasoning for it. And so again, it's at best it's criminal negligence, but at worst this is like this genocide, massacre. I mean, straight up massacre.
Well, we heard some very tragic, stories where, because the families thought in order to protect themselves, they would go to the bathroom and go into the bathtub and turn on the water.
Oh wow!
And there was no water.
Right.
So apparently, I don't know if you can confirm that or not, but they found families grouped together in bathtubs, burnt.
I think, I do feel like that's true, actually, because I have heard similar stories, and people actually attempting to turn on their garden hose, to try to, spray water on the front of their area of their house, and no water coming out. So it is confirmed that the water was shut off. And Yeah, it's really horrible. It's absolutely horrifying. And, and I watched a video last night of a survivor and his story, and just the emotion coming out in him, and, how traumatic it really was. And, one of the reasons why he survived was because he disobeyed orders to stay where he was, and being told you can't go that direction, and he went that direction anyway, and that's the only reason he got out and helped other people get out. So it's really a scary time that we're living in, when you have to really come to terms with this truth that we can't really trust our officials when it comes
Not at
to
all,
the
yeah.
official story, or what they're advising us to do. And it's people are going to have to really start thinking for themselves, and using discernment and standing up, for sure.
Definitely. Yeah.
Well, we
So
really yeah, go right ahead.
Well, no, I just I just wanted to also mention real quick, because we were talking about the emergency proclamation, and it's really a repeat of like what happened with COVID,
Exactly.
and which is where For Our Rights started because of COVID, to push back against all that insanity. And maybe this is a good segue for that whole topic, but yeah, so they did the same thing where they issued the emergency proclamation, suspending all these different laws that basically took all the power away from the people in order to just oppress and keep us in this place of compliance with their mandates for a ridiculous amount of time, when there was no real proof that there was actually an emergency to begin with. So it's the same sort of repeat, and they're going to keep doing it as long as the people keep allowing it to happen.
Yeah. As long as they have these loopholes where they can suspend the rights, and we have this issue in Canada because, we have what's called the Charter of Rights, and we have the Bill of Rights. Now, the Bill of Rights goes back to the '60s, and it's basically was given to us. It recognizes our rights. It's not saying, we are granted these rights. It's recognizes these are our natural God-given rights. Whereas the Charter of Rights, like all these modern charters or proclamations or whatever you want to call them, they always have like these clauses that basically will allow them to suppress any of our natural rights if they feel that it's necessary.
Exactly.
And, that's where there is that's where there's a problem.
Right. And that's the truth of it. That's the bottom line. People need to understand that that our rights are not granted to us by government, like they exist regardless. And they're given to us by our creator, just because we are human beings. And that, it's only by us allowing them to get us to forfeit those rights by acquiescing to their demands. If we just stand firm in that sovereign right, to be free people, and understand that that's how we challenge any of this, and that's what I stood for big time with COVID, and trying to awaken people to that reality that, that they only have power over us to the extent that we give them that power, and that we really just need to be brave and, and understand who we really are in the grand scheme of things, and, we're the 99%. We're the ones that, that their little plans and designs don't work unless we go along with them. And so it's really just a matter of getting everybody on the same page, awakening them to their true inner power, and uniting as one, and we did see a lot of that. We saw the people come together in amazing numbers to push back against all of the COVID restrictions and mandates and the vaccine mandate. And fortunately, I feel like that did make a big difference, and they had to eventually back down. But that was a kind of a trial run, and I don't think they're going to quit that easily, though. I do think they're going to be.
They're not.
They're moving it up. They're moving it up a notch by having all these signatory countries sign into this international law regulations of going through the WHO, so that they can basically usurp national sovereignty. They can impose them directly from the central headquarters. So quick question, is there COVID 2.0 happening in Hawaii as well, where they're trying to start to impose mask mandates and so forth?
So there's a little bit of buzz about that going on here, but it hasn't gotten to any point where it's become really obvious, but there's also sort of always been this lingering fear of COVID here that has never really gone away. Like, I don't know, Hawaii is probably one of the states that was like the most, under the COVID spell. But so there's a lot of places that do still have, like, you got to wear a mask to come in here, mostly like doctors' offices and that sort. But so far we haven't seen too much of it, but there's definitely a concern. There's definitely a reason for us to be on guard that it's, gonna come back. We've definitely seen a lot of propaganda in the media recently about this, like, 3 new variants or something that's circulating.
Yes.
Scary variants.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And
just in time for Halloween.
Yeah.
Good point.
Right? Yeah. And the thing that's so ridiculous about it too is, of course, there's the new variants, but we have a booster for it. So,
get ready. It's already been made. Before it even came out, they had a booster ready. Isn't that just so convenient?
Jeez.
I know. And people need to remember, though, I mean, it's like, basic biology 101, like, viruses mutate and there will be new strains. They mutate over time, but they become less virulent so that so that it can survive, and they can become less deadly, or they might become more virulent. Sorry, that's the opposite, but they become less deadly. And so, so even if what they're saying is true, which I'm, not saying it is true that there's new variants, because that could be completely made up. But I'm just saying, if that is the case, then from what we know about how viruses work, we shouldn't be concerned. It's really, not a reason for us to be running out, lining up, rolling up our sleeves, or putting a mask on, for that matter, because we know masks really do nothing to stop the spread of
studies are coming out. A lot of different studies are coming out. I just read another one here. It's just how damaging it is in terms of the increased concentration of CO2. It's ironic, right? Isn't it ironic? Because all this climate change hoax is all about trying to reduce CO2, but they make you wear a mask and you're actually increasing it by like 10-fold in your own body. It becomes toxic.
I know. It's really
off the chart.
Yeah, for sure. I know. I remember, we fought really hard to try to get the masks off the kids in our schools here. And we were one of the very last places for them to finally drop the mask mandates. And but it just broke my heart, because I mean, knowing that we're actually harming our children, that we're putting them at risk of hypoxia and or to get like skin
or just bacteria,
bacteria. And then even worse than that, of course, is what it was doing to their psychological development, their behavioral development, and speech and everything. Like, to think that we might do that. And I'm hearing that some schools are actually bringing back a mask policy in some states. And so it's happening. We need to definitely be prepared, to not comply. And that's
exactly
not compliance.
And the CDC came out and said, no, there's no truth to that. And we know how often they have lied. All these organizations don't listen to them. Bottom line.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. The CDC even admitted, too, that they had overcounted how many children were being affected by COVID. And they actually had to come out and admit that their numbers were wrong. And so that right there is like proof that, they admitted that there was a scare tactic, a scare campaign to get people to, to mask or vaccinate their kids. And then the truth comes out later, So anybody who still trusts the CDC, I don't know at this point, right?
Well, any kind of regulatory body like that, they're all complicit, complicit.
Absolutely true. Yeah. So with that, people just need to, again, be ready to not comply. And, I stood up and fought hard for that. And sometimes I felt like I was so alone, but, eventually I got some people to follow my lead, but just, not refusing to wear a mask no matter what, like just not participating in the COVID games whatsoever, is like the only way that we're gonna, combat it. And I wound up getting arrested because I refused to do quarantines when I traveled. And unfortunately I was exonerated from all of that because, I'm sure the state knew that they were wrong. And if they really wanted to go to trial. So
that's good. I'm glad to hear that. I was lucky. I was also managed to evade curfew breaking ticket of $1,500 that they, try to throw on us. And in terms of the mask, I had one, like, it was in Quebec here, it was like they were some real mask Nazis here.
Yes.
They were like, I would go in, when I really tried to like break the like not wear the mask, and it was very difficult because they would just, you'd not be able to get into a store. So I did it finally. I went into a pharmacy, and I was just going to the post office because they had a little post office station there, and wanted just to pick up something. So the manager, because last time I did it, I went in there and I wasn't wearing my mask, and they let me go and let me do my shopping. But this time I went in, and so the manager already took mental note of who I was, came by and told me to put on my mask. I said, I'm sorry, I'm just coming here to pick it up, and I don't like, I have an exemption, I just said, or something like that. So
Right.
he called in the security guy. So the security guy came, and he's trying to convince me, and I said, no, I'm sorry. And finally, this guy actually got aggressive, and he started to try to push me around, physically push
Wow.
me around.
That's
Yeah, it
that's
was
assault,
pretty
basically. Yeah,
yeah,
that's and
yeah, it was
that
assault. And I mean, of course, the police came, and there's like they took his side, of course. So there was no nothing we could do about that. But it
right. I saw a
devastated.
lot of that.
Yeah.
Through all of this, and that's the scariest part about it too, is the way that the programming, turned our own neighbors and friends and family against everyone to police each other, and it's
Yeah.
like, well, wait a minute, like, where do you think you have this authority to tell me what to put on my body? And that's the bottom line, is it's no one has a higher authority over you than you, and what you do for your own health and welfare is of no one else's concern, especially not the government, right? And and ultimately, like, I actually even filed a lawsuit, which I managed to do on my own. It took a lot of work and a lot of learning along the way, but against the masks. And my theory, what I was presenting to the courts, is that due to the fact that there's actually a lack of real scientific evidence that masking does anything to help or stop the virus from spreading, that it really can only be equated to like a cult-like ritual. And so then that's a violation of my religious rights, my rights to religious freedom, because they're asking me to join the cult of COVID and express my, my devotion to the cult of COVID by wearing the symbol of, the mask symbol. And it's in violation of my religious beliefs. And unfortunately, that lawsuit was didn't make it. And there's still a possibility that I might be able to bring it back if we do see another mask mandate, because it's been closed administratively but not completely dismissed. But
okay.
Yeah, so that's something I just realized, that if they do COVID 2.0, scamdemic 2, I am gonna have the opportunity to bring that lawsuit back up in the federal court, and who knows, maybe I could win it this time. So
well, that's definitely that's a good sign. And I think there's just more people that are also, I think I am hopeful that there's more people now that are going to join the non-compliance if they try that. I mean, I think there's enough. I think they're actually they're hesitant. I'm quite sure they're hesitant to do it because it could really be a backlash or a pushback much bigger than last time.
I agree. Yeah,
I think so too. I think you're right on point.
Yes, and that's why it's important for people to get involved, and to support, groups that are, creating a tribe of people that are going to stand up. And I just want to throw a little plug in there that our organization is affiliated with Make Americans Free Again. And I don't know if your viewers are familiar with Pam Popper, but she started that at the beginning of COVID as well. And it's grown into like 16 or 17 different chapters across the nation, with groups of people still meeting regularly. And so if anybody is interested, go to makeamericansfreeagain.com, and you can join this coalition of, people that are, willing to come together, stand up, meet regularly to work on ways to ensure that we preserve our freedoms and rights, regardless of what kind of agenda is coming down the pike, whether it's, the digital currency thing. That's another scary thing that we're looking at,
Oh yeah.
yeah, pandemics, whatever, more
Climate.
orchestrated
Economic
fires.
collapse,
Yeah,
digital currencies, digital IDs,
Yeah,
15-minute
you
cities,
name it.
it's all part of it. Yeah.
for
Well,
sure.
we'll
So
make sure to put that in the description and send us your website and for donations and for anything
yes,
else.
absolutely. Yeah. So just to let your viewers know, yeah, forourrights.org. We're located on Kauai. We're, fighting for the rights of the people of the state of Hawaii and beyond. And we've brought several lawsuits in the past. We still have one lawsuit that is pending in an appellate court. So we're definitely grateful for donations. Again, 501c3, so your donations tax deductible. And we also have a Maui Relief Fund on our donate page. So yeah, forourrights.org/donate. And, we're going to continue to keep bringing awareness, and we do regular events to get truth speakers together, to help educate and empower people. So we definitely are always looking for, support, whether people want to volunteer, they can send us an email through our contact us page on our website. And yeah, so thanks for the opportunity to get the word out about who we are and what we're doing.
Oh yeah, really appreciate it. Well, Ian, do you have anything else to ask?
Well, I think we covered quite a bit today, and it's just to follow up. How, what are the next steps? Is there like the kind of last question is there kind of an organized, like enough organization among the groups that they're pursuing like some actions to prevent, first of all, the properties from being taken, and also just to get the truth out, like just as a last word on what's coming up next. Is there anything planned?
So as of right now, not anything planned that I've become aware of, but we personally as an organization are definitely working on connecting with these people that are advocates for, protecting the rights of the people and their property, whether it's these different attorneys or other, grassroots organizations or, churches and nonprofits that have been, on the front lines. And so if people want to refer back to our website regularly, we are going to try to continue to build this community of people and basically build, like an action plan, something that we can do to really fight back, because it's definitely going to be a huge battle. I mean, we're going up against basically the United Nations, and that's where, yeah, that's what it boils down to. And that's what I've been talking about for some time now, for at least like the last 7 years or so. I've really been trying to expose this United Nations Agenda 2030 plan and how that's at the heart of the problem. But really, I think that the only real effective way that we might have at trying to sever the ties for Hawaii is by getting the right people in government to take a stand and say, hey, no, we don't want to be a part of this Aloha Plus challenge for sustainable development goals, or, to expose and say no, that we're not going to participate in this. So that's something that we do too at our organization, is we're really adamant about, election integrity, and of course, trying to get good people in office, because that's probably one of the key factors, in addition to just having people be awake and aware of what's happening. So yeah, so we're going to continue to network with people and try to work on building like you said, this kind of action plan of things that we can do. I think for the most part, people just, again, get to know your neighbors, find out who the patriots are in your area that are working, towards government transparency and things like this that we need, and get involved, volunteer some time. And, little by little, we're gonna get there, I believe.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Wow. Well,
Thanks so much, Levana.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. Let Mark do the closing for that.
Yeah, forourrights.org. We'll put it in the description. Thanks so much, Levana. This was an honor.
Yeah,
absolutely, guys. It was a great conversation. I really appreciate the opportunity to, share what we're doing and just, spread a little bit of awareness and hope for people, that we are fighting all of this evil, and we will be victorious in the end.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.